Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We'll call the meeting to order at 9:33. You have an agenda in front of you. Amendments to the agenda. I would like to add up under other business a thank you. Otherwise, seeing none, a mover for the amended agenda. Matthew, seconded. William, thank you. Those in favour? Those opposed? You have an agenda. The minutes of May the 15th. Mover to approve the minutes. Somebody who was present at the meeting. Done. Seconded by Bridget, thank you. Comments on these minutes? Improvements? Corrections? Seeing none, thank you. A motion to approve those minutes. Those in favour? Those opposed? They are approved, or confirmed, sorry. Pecuniary interest in either of the items presently on the agenda. Seeing none. Presentations? No presentations. Delegations? Done. Briefings? Boy, I turned the page already. Business, cultural heritage? Nope. Nobody moves. Policy development and implementation? The heritage assets? Brings us down to stat business. 80 Gore Road. Ryan. Which one do I press? Oh, you do that one, okay. It's easier than...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the subject property, sorry, I'm yelling at everybody. The subject property is on the northwest corner of Gore Road and Kingston Road 15 on the east side of the Great Cataraqui River. The property is about 18 hectares in size. It contains an 1866 1.5-story limestone former dwelling with a number of historic names, Rattan House, the Hawthorns, Hawthorne Cottage. It's now the home of the Pittsburgh branch of the Kingston Frontenac Public Library and McLean Park. It's designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, and it is adjacent to the Great Cataraqui River, which is a Rideau Canal World Heritage Site. So in terms of its cultural heritage value, as I mentioned, it was designated under Part 4 in 2007. Some of the relevant heritage attributes from that bylaw include the Hawthorne Cottage itself and its exterior limestone construction, its main front entrance, windows, etc. The traditional dry stone wall that's just south of the dwelling, the evidence of historic gardens and agricultural activities on the property, as well as its pathways and views of the Great Cataraqui River. It has associative value with a United Empire loyalist and farmer, John Rattan, who was a reeve of Pittsburgh Township, and the property has contextual value as it is a direct link to the rural history of the area and a landmark along Kingston Road 15. So this is the property, as we know, the Hawthorne Cottage in yellow and the dry stone wall as it exists today, just to the southwest of it. The application before us today is an alteration under Section 33 of the Heritage Act. It is to gain formal Heritage Act approval for the works, installation, site alterations, and construction associated with the east embankment portion of the third crossing bridge over the Great Cataraqui River. The new bridge is to cross the river and connect John Counter Boulevard in the west to Gore Road in the east. The proposed alterations as they relate specifically to this property include the bridge abutments, ramp, new road bed, the realignment of Gore Road, the widening of the existing Gore Road to accommodate the new lanes, and as well as multi-use pathways. There's additional landscaping, grading, stormwater management. There's also the plans for a temporary access road and large staging area that will be accommodated on this property. The project also requires the dismantling of this dry stone wall portion of it. You see pictures of it here before you. The application is to dismantle, store, and reconstruct a 16-meter portion of this wall to accommodate the widening and realignment of Gore Road. So what you're seeing in the bottom left is the corner right next to the Hawthorne Cottage itself. This is the portion out towards the road itself that is to be disassembled, and this is the back portion looking west. So in terms of our review, the impacts to this particular property are best categorized by looking at the attributes that they are affecting at on the property. So they categorize as the dry stone wall itself, the impacts and changes to it, as well as the overall cultural heritage value and character of the property. So as I mentioned, the agricultural remnants, as well as the paths and lanes and the views of the Cataract River are all heritage attributes of this property. So here's a plan of the new alignment of Gore Road and the embankment for the third crossing. With respect to the dry stone wall, which you see in the top right of this screen, the brown is the existing wall, and the red is the reconstructed and realigned portion of it. It is a significant heritage attribute of the property, built around the same time as the cottage in the sort of mid-1860s, probably by the same masons, the Hay brothers, that did the house. It likely was constructed to help protect the orchard and gardens that were in the front of this building at one point. According to the applicant's heritage impact statement, and I quote, "The surviving walls of this quality and exhibiting so fully their traditional vernacular origins are quite rare," unquote. So however, the original extent of this wall has been diminished over time and is reduced to only this. It's approximately 55 meters long now. So what's being altered is about a quarter of the remaining wall. In order to accommodate the necessary widening of Gore Road, including the drainage swales, a small retaining wall, and to properly align with the intersection of Gore Road and Kingston Road 15 without impacting the neighbors to the south, the portion of this wall is to be dismantled, the stones are to be stored, and then recreate this 60-meter-long portion of the stone wall at a location roughly perpendicular to the existing wall and run towards Kingston Road 15. The HIS notes that the proposed location of the reconstruction of the wall has no historic origin, and even though the wall will be carefully dismantled and documented, some new material will be needed, particularly in the corner, at the elbow of the turn. While it is never desirable from a heritage conservation perspective, to permit the removal of a portion of a heritage attribute, the third crossing represents a monumental infrastructure improvement project that will have benefits to the growth and vitality of the city of Kingston for generations. The impact of this particular heritage attribute must be reviewed against the benefits that this project will have to the people of Kingston and the future of the city. The dry stone wall, while an important character-defining feature, is not the only heritage attribute on the property. The landmark limestone dwelling will not be altered by this improvement, and will still have a presence on what will become a rather important intersection at Kingston Road 15 and Gore Road. The stone wall, as I noted, the alterations are limited to roughly 1/4 of its current length. The remaining portion of the original wall will be assessed and restored where required. The new section of the wall is recommended to be built to resemble the original proportions, but with any recreation with new material needed, it will be distinguishable on close inspection, which does align with Standard 9 of the Parks Canada standards and guidelines. It is recommended by the applicant's HIS that an interpretive panel be installed near the stone wall in order to provide a history of the wall, its construction type, and how it has changed over time. This will allow the public to better understand the cultural heritage value of this feature and its evolution, and staff have included that as a discretionary condition of approval in this application. So going back to this sketch here, you can see the majority of the construction of the eastern portion of this embankment of the third crossing is located on the subject property. It will involve whole-scale clearing and substantial grading changes in the work area. And I note that at one time the area was considered a rural area. Large active farms were located along Kingston Road 15. The subject property, by way of its heritage attributes, helps to conserve the former rural character of this area. The Hawthorne Cottage is a good example of a typical farmhouse from the mid-19th century and reflects what would have been a common sight along the rural areas of Kingston from the 19th and early 20th centuries. Remnants of the former orchard and former farm buildings, the grass yards, the wall itself, and sloping property overlooking the Cataraqui River are all contributing factors that conserve this cultural heritage value. While a substantial structure and one that will change the size and configuration of the subject property, the third crossing will also frame and provide a clear divide between the historic rural character of this portion of the road, or this portion of Pittsburgh Township, and the subject property, and the evolving character of the adjacent properties. To the south of this is a larger sort of suburban subdivision, and to the north is more rural, low scale. Addition and replacement of plantings is also proposed to reinstate the vegetative buffer along Gore Road, while further adding to this transition from the new hard landscaping infrastructure, and the historic soft recreational area of the subject property. Now, while only temporary, the large staging area will also have an impact to this property. There's an access road proposed in from County Road 15. Some tree and vegetation removal is planned to accommodate that, and changes to the existing pathways. Some impacts to the existing views of the river will also be impacted because of this. As noted, though, in the designating bylaw, those paths and views are heritage attributes. But interestingly, unlike most heritage attributes, these have become attributes over time and more recently as the property is used for a public park and for the library uses. They don't have a historic basis as some pathways do in the city. The intent is to retain and improve as many of these pathways and viewpoints as possible, and to reinstate them as needed in order to conserve those heritage attributes that the public has come to expect on the property. Further, it's the intent of the property to formalize and make more defined viewpoints as on this property as well as on the bridge itself, to provide interpretive educational displays to help improve the public's experience and understanding of the World Heritage Site and the Great Cataraqui River. So all that in mind, staff have looked at the official plan, the 8 guiding principles in the province, as well as the Parks Canada standards and guidelines, and as well as the submitted material and the HIS provided by the applicants and their detailed drawings. And we are supportive of this application with a number of conditions that are outlined before you. We circulated this application. Some of the technical comments we received, building permit may be required for the wall itself. Forestry is asking for detailed on landscaping plan, tree inventory, and preservation plans as part of this project. The Parks Department has reiterated that they'll be working with the Third Crossing team for parks improvements and enhancements, as well as the multi-use trail connectivity portion of the project. This application was also circulated to the Heritage Committee. Those comments are summarized in the agenda. There was committee members requested that the, quote, mitigation measures that were outlined in the HIS, specifically those that request documentation of the existing conditions, monitoring and mitigating of any effects during construction, that those be implemented as part of this approval, and staff have included those as a condition of approval in this recommendation. And Mr. Chair, we recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next we go on to committee members making their comments and asking questions. So I will head around the circle. Let me know, Matthew.
Yeah, I was somewhat concerned about making sure that a qualified contractor would do the work, because there's not a deep inventory of those types of walls, of dry stone walls in even the area, really. And that one's got a particularly notable cope. The top is like pretty impressive. It's also very like well done, including the butt end of the wall is really tidy, and it's a like significant asset. And so, although it's like well stated in Andre's report, like you can say those sorts of things, but if they're not executed on, then, and so I think that needs to be followed up with like making sure that there's a qualified contractor that does the work. So I don't know if we're particularly the clients here or Hatch is doing it on behalf of the city of Kingston, but I think maybe a recommendation to get CVs from the contractors or something, because typically what happens in these situations is they just get butchered and then we lose it and it's gone. And the notable part, like you can see the end that ties into the library. I went and checked it out. That obviously something happened to it when they did the library. And that 4-meter section is quite different from the other one, which was, you can look at it and you can see that. So anyways.
Ryan or Andre, who wants to?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to the question on to my colleague, Andre Scheinman, who's here working on behalf of the Third Crossing team. But I would note, I believe we've included condition 4 in our recommendation is that the owner shall carefully select a mason with experience in documenting, disassembling, repairing, and reconstructing historic dry stone walls in order to undertake the realignment of the historic dry stone wall. So the project manager for this project is aware of the intricacies of this wall and the specialization it takes to disassemble and reassemble it. So I trust that he will be very particular on who they choose to do the work. So.
Okay, thank you, Andre.
You
Should
turn
be
your
on red.
microphone on? Your microphone's not on. There
That's
it is.
it.
Oh, it was already on and I turned it on. Just to Matt's point and to Ryan's response, it's essential that the reconstruction of the section of the wall be done by a very qualified mason, and not even beyond that, one who has experience in dry stone walling, which is kind of a different animal in itself. And the expectation, or my expectation, would be that the work, at the end of the day, you'd be able to tell the new section by the new material added, which would be, although it would replicate the existing stone, but it would be the dark out of the quarry material. But in terms of quality and technique, would be done exactly as the original, with all the different features. It has a batter on it. It's an angled wall. It has that wonderful coping. It's a very particular beast. It has there's a traditional end of wall treatment that this one does have at Gore Road right now, and that would be transferred to the new end of wall. And the mason who does the work would have to know how to make the traditional corner of a dry stone wall too. So those are all essential, and I think in some way would have to be there'd have to be some oversight to ensure that was the case. And also the drywaller, whether it's the drywaller himself or whatever, would have to have the ability to meticulously document the wall as well. They don't always go together either. Those skills don't always go together either. So, but that whole package is essential to the responsible treatment of that wall. So just to finish, not to go on ad infinitum, but the work at St. Mark's. St. Mark's used to have all the boundary walls at St. Mark's and Barryfield were dry stone walls of sort of similar to what we have at 80 Gore, and then all gone. But then the ones at the front have been recently, as you know, reconstructed. But I would hope, and that's great, that's a great thing, but I would hope that the work at 80 Gore Road, the replication, would be of even a higher quality and closer to its original appearance. So.
Thank you. The thing I can assure you is the oversight when that gets Further questions? Done?
A little more information about, I think there's reference to a swale alongside the road, and do I understand that this will be a built-up area, a built-up mound sort of between the new Gore Road and the stone house, and if I understand that that is what's happening, of course it's good in that it would reduce vibration and so on, and noise in the library from traffic. But if it's a very high swell, it means people on Gore Road really will not be able to see the stone wall or the historic building. So could you have a little more information about the nature of the swell?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in terms of a page reference in your package, it's Exhibit C, page 25. You have the cross-section drawing that's on the screen there. And the swale itself appears to be an inverse swale, so it's actually a depressed swale, so it would not obstruct views to the reconstructed portion of the stone wall. So if that's a concern, it would not be an obstruction to views to the wall.
Yeah. Yep. See where we are, Don? Good, okay, that's fine. That's what questions are for. Further questions? Jennifer?
For the interactive panel, I'd be interested in taking out the consider portion and just making it mandatory. I don't know if that's a problem or why we didn't just say it was necessary. Yeah, number 5, the consent, they shall do that.
Chair, that's the purview of the committee if they choose to do that. There are members of the third crossing team here if they would like to speak on the appropriateness of that. Certainly as heritage staff, we don't object.
So at this point, you have the panel designed and ready to go up. It's a matter of at the end of the whole thing, probably. So keep that one in mind and remind us constantly that of the interest in.
Okay, I was just wondering, it's at their discretion, the owner's discretion, whether or not it gets built. That's what I understand from number 5, instead of it being something that gets approved later. Like it's a requirement. Yeah, I'd rather it a requirement than something that's up to them whether it happens or not.
The owner here is always he. There's no other.
Oh, okay. So.
No other property owner included, is there? No, so it's the city that really would otherwise read. So yeah, keep them reminded. All these things do get forgotten.
Okay.
So when in 2022 we open the bridge, you better make sure that the panel is there.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, Councillor.
Thanks. My question was more about the construction process. Although there won't be any blasting, there's still a concern that vibration due to the heavy vehicle traffic and drilling may cause problems to the existing structures. I wonder if you could speak to that, how that can be mitigated.
Who wants to try that one?
Well, from the HIS point of view, from the review that I undertook, it is recommended that there be monitoring undertaken. So that would involve, there's many ways it can be done, but certainly initially it's a sort of a photographic a documentation of the built elements, so the dry stone wall and the house particularly, elements of both interior and exterior, so that that becomes your baseline. And then as the various activities proceed, there's some, consistent monitoring going on to see if there's any effects, such as cracking in the stone, cracking in the interior wall plaster that wasn't there prior to that. That's why you need that baseline stuff. It can be done in many different ways, and both high tech and low tech. Where there are existing cracks, there can be telltales put on those cracks to see if they widen significantly during construction activities. So so there is that whole aspect of monitoring that I think is reasonable, and it doesn't have to be ridiculously onerous on the construction team. But I think it needs to be. I would recommend that it be part of the process.
Thank you. Other questions?
It's just worth noting too that it's probably the most forgiving wall assembly for settlement. So I think if it were to settle, it just kind of accommodates it. It would be unfortunate, and I think rather than road or construction vibrations, your biggest problem will probably be the fact that it's all going to be on disturbed soil, on the beginning. So unless it's gone down to bedrock, anyway. So just to speak to your concern.
Further questions? Take the chair while I ask. Sorry, Councillor Neil first.
Yeah. One quick question that from the previous questions. Do we anticipate blasting as part of the construction at the Gore Road area? And what precautions will we take in the event of blasting occurring?
Well, I raised that to the design team, at Hatch and also at the city, and they assured me that blasting would not take place. There'd be no blasting. There'll still be hole ramming. There'll still be, heavy construction vehicle vibration, but no blasting, which does make a big difference.
I appreciate that. That's a degree of concern once blasting starts to make sure that foundations and stone walls aren't affected by that. Thank you.
Thank you. Don, the chair for a moment.
Yes, I recognize you.
Couple of questions. When the World Heritage Site was declared, we realized that there was no exact definition of the boundaries of the site. And I certainly was at a meeting with all of the townships involved in the whole canal, which there was a lot of discussion about that. Has that ever been defined? What is the boundary, the side boundaries of the World Heritage Site?
Mr. Chair, when we did our recent update to the official plan, we asked that very question of Parks Canada, and the response we got was the high water mark. So the high water mark on either side of the body of water, and then the LaSalle Causeway at the south end. The causeway not being part of it, but the edge of that. And so the mitigation and the management plans for the World Heritage Site also include a 30-meter setback of sort of a realm of influence, and that 30 meters is to be, in our case, on our portion of the World Heritage Site, Kingston's portion of the World Heritage Site is to be naturalized and left as best it can. So. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's fine. At one point, there was certainly a request, the whole watershed, which is, of course, a huge area, mainly because the councils did not want responsibility for saying yes or no, this could happen close to the canal. The second, because those of you who are concerned, think about the changes this is going to make to the natural setting. I think it's worth looking at city projects like the John Counter-Portsmouth intersection, which was rebuilt this past year, and seeing what the city does, having put a new road through to try and recreate what was once there. And always to remember that greenery is changing anyway, and the site that we get today is probably not the site that was there 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And similarly on the wall, one of the points of the dry stone walls was that they were built so that they could be easily moved. When you suddenly wanted to put a gateway through it, the farmer did not have to break up concrete and cement and everything. So there's nothing particularly new in making the change. Not that that means you don't take all the possible care. Thank you.
Return the chair.
Thank you, Don. Other questions? Yes, Zoe.
I just have a concern in terms of timing. If the wall is to be dismantled and rebuilt, or at least a portion of it, there's no statement of time. I mean, is it going to be dismantled and immediately put back up before the rest of the construction is done? Is it going to be done at the end once everything is planted and dusted and put back to the way that it's supposed to be?
That's a very good point. When will it be rebuilt?
Specifically, my concern is about if there's ramming or anything else like that and the wall is put up before the entire project is done, there is certainly the concern that it would be damaged afterwards.
Yeah, I think the answer to that, although you're right, I mean, there's been no, because there's no construction schedule, it hasn't been actually indicated exactly. Obviously it should be, it should be recorded and dismantled before any activities take place and be well recorded. And I think it should be retained, the stone should be retained on site, but in a very safe manner on pallets, et cetera, and then reconstruction, also restoration, because we're including the restoration of other portions of the wall, including that section near the library itself, which has never been sort of up to scratch. That to my mind should be done once all the construction activity is really completed. So that would, because it's still at risk, I would say.
Yeah. So just for the sake of honoring that, I would say maybe we can change some diction in here so that the wall can be reconstructed during the restoration portion rather than the construction portion. Does that make sense?
That would go in the fourth clause, which talks about the mason. And would you want to add such work will be done at the very beginning and at the completion of, I want to say bridge, and I may want to say road work. And I may want to say all work. That's what you're suggesting, though, is that the wall should come down right at the start and it should stay down until everything else is completed.
Till all heavy is completed.
Heavy construction may be the best word, that the wall be demolished, wall be taken down, disassembled, as I was trying, before heavy construction start and not be reassembled until heavy construction is complete. And should that be an extra clause or can it go on 4? Which would you prefer? Does it matter?
I think of an extra clause.
Do it an extra clause then as probably a 7. You've got that down then?
No, I don't.
Okay, so
from a process point of view, Mr. Chair, we should do this once the actual motion.
Once the motion is on the floor.
So we still have public comments and then we get the motion on the floor.
So we'll look at that as a 7 to give the timing.
And perhaps someone would be willing to write out that motion for the clerk so I can put it up for everybody when the time comes.
Okay. Further questions? Seeing none then, members of the public? Yes, Mr. Public.
We'll just get you to go to the microphone, please. Thanks, Peter.
My name's Rob Crothers. I'm a project manager on the Pittsburgh Township Library at the moment. The that's right, not quite. It's not Pittsburgh Township, it's the Pittsburgh branch. I'm curious whether anybody knows where the original stone wall was and its extent.
There's a 1969 image. It's the ordnance survey, so it's very meticulously done. It includes the property. There's a little snippet of it in my heritage impact statement that covers the property. And it seems to show the wall. It's hard because a lot of the line weights, at least in the versions that we have now, are a little hard to discern because you get topographic information, plus you get, structure information. And for something like a wall, which is, a line, it's a little hard to be absolutely sure, but it seems to show the wall, although much curvier wall, encompassing an orchard, in sort of more or less its existing location, but also extending, if I'm reading it correctly, extending northeast from the other side of the house, also where the orchard continues. And so there is an extent that seems to have been on the northeast, extending from the northeast corner, if you will, of the house. So, but that's the image. If you want to refer to it, that's the earliest image, and it's quite early because the surveys were done for this were done in 1866 to 1868, and this map is dated 1869, and the house is supposedly sort of 1866, sort of right in there. So,
Thank you. I'll get the
Page 41, if you're interested.
Okay. Other members of the public? Seeing none then, we have a motion, which I believe is going to have an amendment added to it. I won't read it through at present. Have you got it on the screen? No.
I was going to go put it on.
You're going to put the screen? Okay, thank you. It's printed, the building permit, planning act approvals, mitigation recommendations from the HIS, the carefully selected mason, the installation of an interpretive display, and heritage planning staff shall circulate the drawings and design specifications, etc. And we're going to add and also that this remain in effect for 5 years. Normally, motions passed here are good for 3 years, i.e. if you're doing work on your house and you get approval, you need to do that work within 3 years. Because of the complexity of this project, there is a recommendation that the current bylaw be amended so that this stays in effect for 5 years. So if I can have a mover of the motion as printed, moved by William, seconded by Zoe, thank you. And the proposed amendment, which I think came from Zoe. Is that wording good for you? In red? Well, that's neat, boy. That the disassembling of the wall be completed before any heavy construction work is started, that the stones be kept on site, and that the wall be reassembled when heavy construction is complete. Moved by Zoe, seconder. For Jeremy, thank you. Discussion on the amendment, which we probably had before. Seeing none. Those in favour of the amendment? Those opposed? Back to the full amended motion, remembering with the that notwithstanding clause at the bottom. Discussion? Done.
I'd like to suggest another minor amendment. I think we've had a discussion about how important it is that the mason in charge of the wall is well qualified. And I think the wording in section part 4 is really not quite adequate. It says, the owner shall carefully select. Well, the owner can still select anybody they want. And so I think I'd like to make a change so that it would read, the owner shall select to the satisfaction of heritage planning staff a mason. Sorry, I can't read this very well. The owner shall select a mason to the satisfaction of heritage planning staff with experience, etc., etc.
So the owner, we are taking out the word carefully.
Yes.
And adding in after mason to the satisfaction of heritage planning staff.
I'm gonna have to ask for that in writing again. That's
Okay.
procedurally what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
So if you would please oblige, John, I think you have some paper.
You got
on
some
your
paper
table
there?
underneath. Or a piece of paper works too. Okay. I know this slows the process, but make sure we get everything right.
And I think it goes without saying that heritage planning staff, if they feel the need, could consult with Mr. Scheineman or members of this committee when the city has applications for this work.
Yep, no, your point is well made. Now have it in writing, then to come back afterwards and question. Are we going to have any other amendments to this that you want to start writing on now? Okay, so the amendment moved by Don that in number 3, the owner shall select a mason to the satisfaction of the heritage planning staff with experience to, etc. Is there a seconder for that? William, thank you. Discussion on that amendment? I think, Don, you probably made your point before. Seeing no further, those in favour of the amendment to clause 3, those opposed, that is carried. Further amendments to the motion then as on the screen with the 2 amendments, looking for a mover of the amended motion, Matthew, and the seconder, Jeremy, thank you. Discussion? Yes, William.
For information, Amherst Island has the largest collections of dry stone walls in all of Canada. And in 2012, the International Dry Stone Wall event was held there for the entire planet. The staff may want to contact Topsy Turvy Farms or people on Amherst Island because they really know their stuff.
Yep, thank you. And I think, Ryan, you probably know the Amherst Island group, and you may well have, but that'd be a good start, thank you. Other comments on the motion on the screen, the amended motion on the screen? Seeing none then, those... Oh, I'm sorry.
Chair, just point out, I think my observation is the amendment, I think, was intended to be in 4, not 3. And I just would want to make sure that's correct. Because the subject matter of the third recommendation is the mitigation strategy. Whereas
Oh,
the
you're
fourth,
right. I'm sorry. That should be in 4. It should be in here. The owner shall select a mason, shall delete carefully and then add in the red. Thank you very much there. Yeah, without making you jump up and make all the change then. 3, the owner shall ensure, the owner shall. 3, the red print in 3 should not be there, and it should be in 4, where I keep on wanting to point to my screen and assuming you can see it up there. In 4, we delete carefully and add in that red lettering after mason. The owner shall select a mason to the satisfaction of heritage planning staff with experience in documenting, disassembling, repairing, and reconstructing. When we get to the minutes next month, we'll need to very carefully look at that.
There probably is a way we can deal with this, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Perhaps we could take a recess.
You want to take a recess for a couple of minutes?
We can
Okay.
solve this the proper
Yep.
way, so thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, so let's do a 5-minute recess right now. I'll come back to you, Matthew, or you can come and talk with me. Okay, thank you for that. We'll just wait for Matthew to come. And what we've put up on the screen to avoid a complicated procedural movement is to have left the amended motion in 3, but added that same words where originally we intended them to be in 4. And thank you, was that Don who pointed that out? That we put it in the wrong? No, it was you, that's right.
unfortunately, I'm going to have to say something else.
What are you going to say this time?
The
then?
unintended consequence of leaving it in there is that you've actually relieved the city of all obligation to mitigate. If you read the wording, you've assigned that to the mason, and the mason has no authority within the construction. So the reason it should be assigned to the owner, that the owner directly ensures mitigation occurs.
So which clause are you referring to?
Clause 3, I
Okay.
recommended the wording come out.
The owner, i.e. the city, shall select a mason to the satisfaction of the heritage planning staff to ensure that the mitigation recommendations, which you've got in your package,
I see.
So it's the mason now who is ensuring, not the owner. The owner's verb is select.
I see. So we need to remove that.
Correct.
in 3.
All right. We may need to do some procedural things, so.
Okay, no, thank you for pointing that one out. Okay, we are going to try and do this the easier way. By admitting that we put the words into 3 incorrectly. And do we need a motion to withdraw them, to take them out?
No,
No.
let me go on the microphone here. So what we can do here is a motion to amend, whereby we will delete the wording we added in clause 3. So all the words in red will be deleted. And then as part of that, the wording in red in clause 4 will be added. So it's to undo what we did 10 minutes ago and add the wording in 4. Now, before we do anything else, we should see if there's any other parts of this that wish to be amended at this time so we don't have to go back again. And I think, Mr. Chair, Mr. Taylor has a comment to
And
add.
that is to also delete the word carefully in 4, which was part of the original amendment there. So it reads, the owner shall select a mason. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, is comment or no? Okay, no worries then. Sorry, there's a lot going on right now. My apologies.
Any other amendments while David is there? Okay. Considering this is probably the largest project that this committee has ever dealt with, you're doing very well. So you now see who moved that where we've got to now. In fact, we don't have a mover either. So I need a mover to approve the amended motion as is. William, and a seconder. Councillor Jim Neal. So you now have a motion that we're going to go ahead with, amended in 4 and the addition of 7. Discussion? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair, just a quick clarification. So this vote here is on strictly the amendment we just made. 7, we're not touching with this one. It's just to delete the portions of 3 that we added and make the change to 4.
So 3 is amended by from where it was before. So this is to approve the changes we've just made in 3 and 4. Those in favour? Those opposed? You now have a motion as you see on the screen. Further discussion on this one? Seeing none, we have it moved and seconded. Those in favour? Those opposed? Thank you very much for that. Thank you for that complication, Andre, Ryan, everybody. I was going to say good luck with the project, but that is the understatement of... Good luck with moving the wall. Let's leave it at that. Okay, we go on to a part 5 at page 58 in your minutes. 9 Wellington Street. And again, staff will introduce the request. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is 9 Wellington Street. It's at the southeast side of Wellington Street between West and Lower Union Streets in the Old Sydenham Heritage Conservation District. The property contains the north half of a 2.5-story brick semi-detached dwelling that was constructed in 1879, which is the property. So the building is the left on your screen, the left half of the semi. In terms of the cultural heritage value of the property, it is designated under Part 5 as part of the district, and it's in the North Tubagat sub-area of the plan. Both the district and the sub-area have their own heritage attributes, so we've listed some of the applicable ones here, including the varying ages and styles and types of buildings in the area, the compact scale of the street, and the building heights and setbacks. Vernacular buildings in this particular sub-area are predominant, and views of the city park, especially at the terminus of Wellington Street, are important character-defining elements of this part of the district. The building is noted as a significant building to the district, and the building itself, through the inventory, lists a few Noted features, including the one-story bay window with the flat roof and plain entablature, the paired windows topped with solid ashlar hoods that are slightly arched, the pair of rectangular windows with simple wood surrounds on the second story, and the inner bays that are slightly projected that contain the entrances. So this is a close-up of the view of the property from a bird's eye. So as I said, the building is on the left of the semi. Here's a closer up of the building and the side of it, which the entrance on the side will become part of this application. What we're looking at today is an application under Section 42 of the Heritage Act for an alteration. The applicants wish to remove the concrete porch, which you see in the picture on the right, and replace it with a new wooden porch of a similar size and scale with railings. The applicants also propose to remove 2 windows on the basement level and 2 doors, one on the front elevation and one on the side elevation. The windows in the basement level are vinyl sliders. They're proposed to be installed with new metal-clad wood casement-style windows, painted white. The new windows will be designed with a 4-pane glazing pattern with arched tops to resemble a period-appropriate window. In discussion with staff, the applicants have agreed to consider as an option double casement windows with arched tops that would pay tribute to the original windows on the pattern in the building. In terms of the 2 doors, the applicant is proposing to replace them with metal-clad wood sash windows of a similar size to ones that are on the front of the building, with a lower decorative spandrel panel made of wood to retain the existing opening sizes. So plans are attached to your agenda package. And in terms of our review, the existing concrete porch is not historically appropriate and does not contribute to the character of the building or the district, and its removal is supported. Section 434 of the district plan recommends that porches should replicate period-appropriate porches. Conveniently enough, the building next door appears to have its original porch. The district plan discourages the use of fiberglass or plastic replicas. A number of the committee members responded suggesting that the applicant should consider replicating the porch next door, and I understand the long-term intent is to do that, but currently the porch is quickly deteriorating, and the applicants wish to provide a safe means of egress for his tenants, and wants to construct just the bottom portion of this porch at this point, with a goal to do the upper portion at a later date. In terms of the windows, section 532 of the district plan is a window policy section. The intention is to replace the 2 windows and 1 door on the front and 1 door on the side. Again, the windows on the neighboring property at 7 Wellington up on the basement, you can see them in the bottom right of your screen, appear to be the original casement windows for this row, and the applicants are encouraged to replicate that design as best as they can. However, the change in grade over time of this building has reduced the length of these windows, so making it replicating the original size difficult and impractical. The owner intends to remove the infill. You can see in the picture on the top right, the infill that has been done around these windows. The applicant wishes to remove that to reopen the original opening size and install windows that fit appropriately within that opening size. And the district plan allows simulated divides and metal-clad wood windows. The owner is considering, as an alternative to the 1 casement window with arch top, a double casement window with arch tops to pay tribute to those windows next door. And staff have built that into the recommendation. The proposed alterations to the basement windows is a great improvement from what exists currently and complies with the district plan. In terms of the 2 doors, they currently don't provide egress from the building. And they are treated as windows, and the owner intends to retain and conserve the existing openings as they are. And in response to comments from the committee members, the side window, the one you can see on the left, they will not be reducing the length of the opening. They're going to retain it. From an authenticity perspective, certainly replacing the inappropriate altered doors with period-appropriate doors is the most desirable. And one committee member suggested that a half-glazed, half-paneled fixed door in place of the windows and lower panel as proposed for the two openings. And staff, of course, support this recommendation. However, the owner wishes to proceed with their plans to install the sash windows of similar length to those on the front of the building and use a removable infill bottom portion, a wooden bottom portion panel that'll be painted to match the trim around the building. As the original openings will remain unchanged, new doors could be installed in the future. And without the second story on the porch or the steps on the side of the building, doors hanging in midair seem inappropriate and appear out of place. The applicants note that when the owner constructs the second story of the porch, their plan is to reintroduce a door on the front of the building to access that balcony. So while staff support the alteration, a discretionary condition has been included to recommend to request that the applicant consider as an option the installation of doors in these openings as an option. So in summary, the proposed alterations will improve the appearance of the subject property and will not detract from the heritage attributes of the property or the district. And we reviewed this against the provincial 8 guiding principles, the district plan, the city's official plan, and of course the standards and guidelines from Parks Canada. We also circulated this to application. Building staff note that there's a building permit required. Engineering reminds the owner that they are not to encroach into the city road allowance with the new porch. And Kingston Hydro has reminded the owner that if they cannot keep a safe distance from the hydro lines, that they will need a confinement of the lines. So we did circulate this through committee, and your comments are summarized in the agenda. And there were a number of design suggestions for the new porch, including larger posts and perhaps turned pickets as opposed to the square. And we have no objection to that. We've included those as, again, discretionary conditions for the applicant's consideration. And Mr. Chair, we recommend approval of this application with a series of conditions.
Thank you very much. And you've seen those in the agenda. Committee members, are your dash comments correctly recorded here? If not, please indicate. Okay. Members of the public, comments? Seeing none. Committee members, comments and questions? Yes, Zoe.
First, I have a question. I believe, if I'm correct, that this property was previously for sale and did not sell. Is that correct? No idea? Okay. Based on that assumption, because I was fairly certain that when I saw it, I remembered seeing a for sale sign out front of it. The aesthetic changes that I imagine the owner is proposing is likely in order to actually sell the building rather than restore the building.
I think you get for asking a question they couldn't answer. That's a... Yes, sir.
I'm the agent for the owner. He did recently purchase it and spent over $200,000 on
Okay, thank you. Further committee comments, questions? Councillor Doherty?
I was trying to imagine the door changed into a window with a panel underneath the way you described it, Ryan. Do we have an example of a picture where that was done, like what that would look like? In another building, maybe? Or have you seen it successfully being done so that it kind of looks still like a door or looks like it fits properly together? The plan.
Mr. Chair, I'm afraid I'm blanking on an example off the top of my head. So we don't have a picture at this point, but yeah, I'm afraid I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Further comments, questions? Don?
I guess I am really rather disappointed at where this is going. This is a very nice house. It would be wonderful if it were improved. That, you know, the intention of the district plan and guidelines is to provide guidance and advice on maintaining and improving property. And I think between the guidelines, members of this committee, heritage staff, it's quite clear what should be done on this property. But the outcome of the actual recommendations is basically they can do what they want. And that's, to me, that's disappointing, as I say. Now, I think this committee is not being, in the past, is not being unreasonable in forcing owners to do expensive and so on work. And I guess this is a good illustration here. There's a porch that needs to be done, and we say, yeah, it'd be nice to rebuild the porch to match what it should be, but that's expensive. And I wouldn't feel comfortable in forcing them to do it. On the other hand, these basement windows, it's clear what should be done is they should be rebuilt to match the ones in the other half of this building. Yeah, the ground level has changed, but an hour's work with a shovel would lower would open the space to allow the original openings to be done. And I think most owners and landlords would like to have more light into their basement. So I think it'd be very reasonable to require the original basement openings and windows that match the ones that are next door. I think that's a reasonable requirement. And, the guidelines say this should be done and that should be done. But it's up to this committee and to heritage staff to sometimes say this is what you have to do. And that's not happening. And, given this committee no longer has the power to amend these recommendations, I think that's the way it's going to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? Yes, Jane.
Yes, I have a concern. The windows on the second floor and the other window on the side having, or doors, former doors, ending up being windows with a decorative panel, because I don't think we have any idea of how that's going to look. And I'm concerned that it won't look as good as a fixed door might. And the other thing is, I think the owner might want to consider spending the money, if they're spending all that money on 2 new windows and a fixed decorative panel, they may as well get a decent looking door, a heritage appropriate door, and put it in, fix it there, and when the time comes to build the porch, then at least you haven't spent money and that you can't recoup on. So I really don't support the fact that they're going to change those door openings to windows and with the decorative panel. I can't see how that's going to enhance the heritage district or that particular building.
Okay, thank you. Further comments or questions? Matthew?
I think all those concerns are super valid. It seems too, though, they're not doing any irreparable damage to the building, to the core of the structure, which is nice. And the typical lifespan, even of an aluminum-clad wood sashed window, if you're lucky, you're going to get 30 years out of it. So there is a timeline to those, which is a bummer because you're going to have to look at it for 30 years. But it's, they're already getting the best of the worst anyways. They're getting aluminum-clad wood windows. So, I think on that grounds, and we haven't seen an example of what that panel is going to look like, but I mean, it's pretty typical. It'll probably be something with the sill for the window to sit on with the thing. And, I don't know, sometimes it seems onerous, like kind of like what Don was saying about the porch, you know, it's, you can't ask these people to spend $100,000 on a porch, because I look at the porch next door, and that's what you're looking at. So, you know, these sorts of things, I think, like, that's what I'm thinking in my head, you know, like, they're taking an interest in taking care of the property. They're putting in a stopgap solution for the porch, something there. I don't know, that's what I'm thinking, not to discredit, but, you know, they're not putting vinyl windows in, which is nice. So, anyways.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Seeing none then, the motion is needed to be moved and seconded to support the staff recommendation. Do I have a mover? William, do I have a seconder? Done, thank you. There's no amendment, no deferment. Those in favour? Those opposed? Thank you very much. Sorry? Two opposed. Well, let me do that one again then, because I
will recommend that, again, for people procedurally, if you do not vote, that goes as a no vote.
As a no, yeah.
So just to clarify that.
So those in favour of the recommendation as is? 4, and if you can keep your hands up.
Keep your hands up, people, just so we can see. So we've got 1, 2, 3,
4. And those opposed? 5. So that loses. That brings us down to item E, which is the 2018 Heritage Kingston report card. I need a mover and a seconder for this recommendation, which goes to council, and then discussion can take place once we've got it on the table. I have a mover to approve this report card. Don, seconder. Councillor Doherty, thank you. Comments, questions? Okay, Don, if you could just take the chair for a moment then. My one, and I realise that as my name is on the report, it's an odd one to make, but what the mandate for Director Wright and myself to approve this report does not say is it does not include work that Ryan and his department have done, which does not reach this committee. And that's a huge amount of work. And I talked privately with Ryan about this, and we're wondering if in the future, and councillors, you may take note of this, if there is some way of rewording the bylaw that says that committees have to report, that it's not just the work that actually goes on at this table, but it's all the work prior to this table. Because this, in a way, is a pretty scanty report, and I don't think it reflects all the work that's been done on heritage buildings and the heritage districts in the city.
Return the chair.
Thank you. Further comments? If none, then those in favour of approving the 2018 Heritage Kingston report card? Those opposed? Thank you very much. The working group reports, starting on page 90. Do we have questions, comments on the Heritage Properties Working Group? 2 of them. The Cultural Heritage Working Group.
I think
Jennifer wants to say. Yep.
Through you. I just want to raise an issue that has been brought several times before this committee for consideration. There is currently no member of this committee who is sitting on the Cultural Heritage Working Group, and we've had a great deal of attrition in that working group over the last several weeks, months. This group has approved now the work plan for that working group, which you saw was intense, and the amount of items that are on it that need to be covered. So I'm just, I guess, making a plea, not if you as individuals are not able to sit respectfully of your time and other commitments, but If you could use your position perhaps to consider sharing with others that you know have interest in this sector, and whether or not they might be interested in joining the working group. This isn't actually, you see in the notes, it was Patty Fiore's last meeting, as the notes reflect, and we are now down to 3 community members on the Cultural Heritage Working Group, with an intense list of priority work for the City of Kingston.
It's not just you, it's with an interest in that area. Your email is city email, easy to get in touch with, and part of your job before July is to troll for new members. Excellent, thank you for mentioning that. Any questions, any of those reports then? Emergency approvals? Oh, we need a motion, sorry, just to approve. Can we do all 3 at once?
Yep, we can just do all.
A motion then to approve the 3 working group reports. Moved by Don, seconded by Jane. Thank you very much. Questions, further questions? Seeing none, those in favour, those opposed, so those are approved. Emergency approvals? None. Motions? Seeing none. Notices of motion? Yes.
We had talked before about Dash, about like doing another Dash.
About another workshop on
Yeah.
We're going to follow that up with staff.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other business. Departures. Greg, you didn't ask our permission. This is Greg's last meeting. He heads off to British Columbia. Whereabouts?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've accepted a job with the City of Delta, just south of Vancouver.
Well, thank you for what you've done. Do you have a formal motion to thank Greg for all the work, help that he's given us? Moved by Don Taylor, seconded by Councillor Doherty. Those in favour? Good. I don't have to say anybody against. Thank you so much for... I've watched while I've been on the committee all that, the work that you've done, the new ideas that you've brought in, and I'm sure Ryan is hoping he gets half as good a successor. Yeah. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you indeed then. 12 residents, and I just hope that you have read this letter carefully, because, and I would thank Don and the Finleys, and maybe you could carry on the thanks to the Finleys, for a really carefully worded comment on the proposed revisions to the Heritage Act. It was a very, very difficult thing to do because it was so amorphous what the government put out. And I read about 10 different criticisms and comments on it, and I think you went down to some really simple points, which affect Kingston in particular. And I hope everybody has read those carefully. And Jim?
Be asking Greg to do this if he wasn't leaving tomorrow. But Bill 108 has a lot of impacts on planning and on heritage, and some of them aren't really clearly defined yet. Right. So at some point in time, I think a briefing, both to this committee and to the planning committee, on what the potential impacts of 108 are would be really helpful. Some of it is left in the purview of council to choose whether we want to change protocols, but a lot of it
so we need an explanation once we find out what has happened. Good.
Exactly.
We'll keep that one in mind then. Meeting Wednesday the 17th July here. See you all then. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Neal, done. Those in favour, doesn't need to be done. Excellent. Thank you indeed.